In March 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory would kill 146 workers in minutes. It is one of the most infamous disasters in American history. But what almost no one realizes is that Triangle wasn't some freak, unpredictable tragedy. It was a repeat, one that could have been stopped. Just 4 months earlier, 10 miles away in Newark, New Jersey, an almost identical factory burned. Locked doors, useless fire escapes, and workers trapped with no way out. Newark was the warning sign that everyone ignored. At 9:26 in the morning on November 26, 1910, a young worker named Sadie Hampson was sitting at her lamp manufacturing station on the 3rd floor of a factory building in Newark, New Jersey. Her job was simple: feed small carbon pieces into a machine and press the buttons in front of her over and over just like a typewriter. Without warning, there was a sudden flash. Flames burst directly into her face. Sadie screamed and called for her boss, a man named Mr. McQuat. He rushed over and grabbed a bucket of sand, trying to smother the flames by himself. That was the first mistake. The Newark Fire Department was located directly across the street. If the alarm had been raised immediately, firefighters could have been inside the building within moments. But calling them meant reporting the fire, and the building already had a reputation. Over the previous 10 years, it had experienced 10 separate fires. Another report would drive insurance rates even higher. When McQuat realized the flames were spreading beyond control, he finally ordered one of the girls to run across the street and get the firemen. But by then, the fire was already racing across the oil-soaked wooden floors. Above the lamp factory was another workplace, the Wolf Muslin Undergarment Company. More than 100 women and girls worked on the top floor sewing undergarments for just a few cents an hour. With no fire alarms in the building, they had no idea a fire was raging beneath them. The building, standing at the corner of High Street and Orange Street since 1855, was a fire waiting to happen. Decades of manufacturers had soaked the wooden floors with chemicals, oils, and solvents. Paper box companies filled the first 2 floors. The 3rd floor was a lamp factory using gasoline vapors, and the 4th floor was the garment factory. Paper, gasoline, and fabric, stacked right on top of each other. At first, nothing seemed wrong on the 4th floor. Machines hummed, women were busy sewing, the same as every other day. Then someone noticed a faint smell, easy to ignore. No alarms rang, no one warned them. Panic hit when they realized what was happening. They rushed for the stairs, the only way down. But the stairway was narrow and surrounded by wooden paneling that funneled everyone toward a single door. The first girls turned the handle. Nothing. It was locked. The single fire escape became the only option, but it was almost inaccessible. To even reach it, the woman had to climb onto a windowsill nearly 4 feet above the floor. Once they reached the fire escape, it was clear it wasn't designed for this. Too narrow, too weak, too many people at once. It gave way, destroying the last chance of escape. Smoke and heat filled the room. Girls climbed onto the ledges and were left with an impossible choice: jump or be overtaken by flames. Some hit the pavement, others landed on iron fences. By the time it was over, 6 had died inside the factory, 19 more from jumping. This should have been a national wake-up call for the thousands of other factories across the country, not to mention all the warnings from experts. On January 7th, right between the Newark Fire and the Triangle Fire, engineer Peter Joseph McKeon published an article titled "Fires, Factories, and Prevention." In it, he stated clearly that factory conditions in New York were undoubtedly as bad as those in New Jersey. He specifically pointed to the same wood stairways and outside fire escapes that had already turned the Newark factory into a fire trap. Nobody listened. It's March 25th, 1911, 4:40 in the afternoon. Nearly 600 workers are finishing their shifts at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, which occupies the top 3 floors of the 10-story Ash building in Manhattan. On the 8th floor, a spark catches in the scrap bin beneath the cutting table. Within seconds, flames race across the piles of fabric. Those workers see the fire and rush for the stairs, alerting all the lower floors as they fled the building. There's no fire alarm, but the 10th floor has a phone. A call reaches those workers and they climb up to the roof to safety, but no one warns the 9th floor. The fire spreads up from the 8th floor at a shocking speed. The 9th floor workers are now unknowingly trapped. Smoke starts pouring in from below and the floor erupts into panic. Some rush to the Washington Place stairway but find the heavy door locked tight. Those who turn to the Green Street stairs hit a different trap. The doors open inward. With the crowd panicking and pushing to escape, it's impossible to open the door. The fire escape is the last option. It's a flimsy iron structure bolted to the wall. Under the weight of fleeing workers and the heat, it bends and tears away from the building, collapsing into the alley. Once again, people are forced to make the decision to jump 9 stories or be overtaken by flames. In just 18 minutes, it's over. 146 people are dead, most of them from the 9th floor. It's the same disaster that happened in New Jersey just 4 months earlier, but this time, the scale forced the whole country to watch. After the New Jersey fire, the search for who was responsible began immediately. In the end, no one was held accountable. The jury looked at everyone. The tenant wasn't liable, they just rented the space. The owner had technically followed the existing fire codes, and the city blamed the state for weak laws. Then came the Triangle trial. The owners, Max Blank and Isaac Harris, were indicted for manslaughter, but they were acquitted. The reason? It had to do with that locked door. Management would lock it during shifts to stop workers from taking unauthorized breaks and to prevent theft. But to convict, the prosecution had to prove the owners knew the door was locked. They couldn't prove it, so the verdict was not guilty. While they escaped criminal charges, a civil lawsuit later found them liable, but the settlement was a slap in the face. Families received just $75 per victim, while the insurance companies paid the owners $445 for each life lost. They didn't just walk free, they turned a profit. 2 years later, Blank was caught locking factory doors again. His punishment? Just a $20 fine. While the courts failed, public outrage finally forced authorities to act. The catastrophic 1903 Iroquois Theater fire that killed 602 people had already changed fire codes for public spaces, but factories and workplaces were left as a massive loophole. The 146 lives lost at Triangle finally closed it. It's the reason workplace doors are now required to swing outward in the direction of escape. And it's why modern buildings have enclosed fireproof stairwells, fire alarms, and automatic sprinkler systems. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what happened to these 2 buildings. Are they still standing and in use today? The forgotten Newark fire, where 25 people died and no reforms followed, is almost completely erased from the map. This 1909 map clearly shows the factory's footprint, with the firehouse directly across the street. High Street is now Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. So when I overlay the modern satellite map, both buildings are gone. All that is left is a parking lot where the firehouse was and an empty lot where the factory was. But there is a small plaque indicating that this was the location of the tragedy. But if we jump over to Manhattan, to the site of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, the story is completely different. The Ash Building on Washington Place is still a hub of activity, but unlike Newark, its corner is marked by a massive stainless steel memorial ribbon etched with the names of all 146 victims. Today it's called the Brown Building, and it's owned by New York University. Every day, hundreds of students study and work in the same rooms where the fire once claimed 146 lives. But when they leave class, they push through heavy, unlocked doors that swing outward into a wide, fireproof stairwell. Safety features written into law because of what happened there. Newark was the prediction everyone ignored. It took the unimaginable scale of the Triangle Fire to finally force the world to change. But disasters like this have been ignored more often than most people realize. Years before the infamous Boston molasses flood, an almost identical disaster wiped out a neighborhood in New Orleans. And just like Newark, it was completely ignored and erased by history. Click here to unpack that one. Thanks for watching. If you like unpacking the past, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.